Hello and welcome everybody to today's webinar, how to run a live schedule, integrating your schedule with shop floor data. My name is Martin Karlovic and I'm the CEO and co-owner of Electronic Software, and I'm your today's host. This is actually a webinar that was scheduled to start or to happen like a month ago. At that point of time, we had to cancel it because, I don't know, I wasn't well organized. So I apologize for this. But now I'm happy that you are back here again to take a deep dive into a new functionality of the VAPS, the Visual Advanced Production Scheduler, that we released end of March, and that I very quickly introduced in the What is New in VAPS webinar that I ran in April, but where I said, okay, we need to actually have a deeper dive into this because this functionality, this feature is quite powerful and to a certain degree also complex. So I thought it's worth having a webinar on this. So what is all about? This webinar is all about that on the one hand, we have our plan. This is on the schedule that you build with the VAPS. And on the other hand, you have the actual, so things that happen on the shop floor. And of course, there are always those moments in time where reality hits the plan or where the plan hits reality. And then you have to adapt the schedule on what has happened on the shop floor or what is happening on the shop floor. And this can be a quite tricky thing. And we implemented a couple of new features, functionalities into the VAPS to make this updating the schedule based on actual data much more seamless with the VAPS, the Visual Advanced Production Scheduler. So as this is a webinar, you guys are all on mute. If you have a question, then please feel free to use the chat pane. I will answer all of them either direct or once I'm in the demo, then I may let the question unanswered, finish the demo, and then come back to your questions. But you're highly encouraged to interact with me through the chat pane, to ask questions, to challenge me, so that in the end we make this a webinar that answers your questions and not only helps me to run my script. So with this, let's get it going with trying to manage PowerPoint. So with putting the webinar into perspective, this is what I'm always doing. So this time we're talking about feature and function, but this really more deep dive. So you need to be familiar with our product, especially you need to be familiar, or you should be familiar with our Visual Advanced Production Scheduler product, the VAPS. And then if you're familiar with the VAPS, then this time we drill down, we do a functional deep dive. So that's not a new what's new webinar, but we do a functional deep dive into the integration of the VAPS, like in the end with the capacity ledger entries. And so with this, you all know, we figured out, not lately, but like we figured out some time ago that there is something that I can only describe as a data gap in Business Central. So on the one hand, we have the data that are related to the production scheduling, and this is the plan data. And they are like, if we simplify this a bit, these data are held in the production order routing line. So in the table 5409, the production order routing line table, there we see all the routing steps, we see the times, we see the associated machine centers and work centers, we see the setup time, we see the quantity, and we see all of this. So everything that you typically see in a graphical scheduler, this may be ours, this may be the VPS, the VAPS, but this also may be other folks' visual schedulers. This data typically comes from the production order routing lines, because these are the data that are meant to deal with everything that is planned regarding production orders in Business Central. But as we know, the only reason to do a plan the only reason for us to do a plan is then to execute it. And when we execute, of course, we want to like report on the progress we are doing. We need to post the actuals, because we have a zillion of good reasons to have good actuals in our ERP system. And all the data that concerns the production progress, or all the data that are related with the actuals, they are, and again, let's simplify this bit, held in the capacity ledger entries, and this is the table 5832. And the thing with Business Central is there is really like a Chinese wall in between the production order routing line and the capacity ledger entry. So there is no data feedback from the shop floor into the planning. It is good, in my point of view, it is really good that we have like two different tables in which we store these type of data. One table for the planning data, one table for the actuals. But there should be, in my point of view, one mechanism that actuals have an impact on the schedule. So if we scheduled something to run until 3 p.m. and the actuals say, hey, it was run until 6 p.m., then we know we have a delay, and this delay typically has an impact on the schedule, especially if we schedule productions or operations on the machines back to back, as a lot of our customers do when they schedule with finite capacity, which most of the customers we work have. And this feedback from the shop floor into the planning, this is entirely missing in Business Central. So you can set up your production orders with the routings, and the routing lines keep being the routing lines, and then you can post via the production journal and create capacity ledger entries. And these two entities, they are completely separated from each other, and it doesn't matter what you post, it will not impact your production or routing lines. And this can create some issues. I'll just give you an example. And this is like a real life example. In this case, we had a customer, they had a production order that was scheduled, let's call it for machine 1. And it was one of those production orders that everybody knows, with a high value for super important customer. And this was a production order that was scheduled on that to run on that machine for a week. And then for some reason, the machine operator looked at the incoming material, whatever, and decided, okay, machine 1, what the scheduler said is not the right machine. So he started to run it on machine 2, and he posted it accordingly to this. So he did everything right. So the machine operator picked the production order. He went to the production journal, changed the machine center, put it to machine 2, and said, okay, start it. And the production order routing line set was changed into in progress. And then the capacity ledger entry said this production order was started on machine 2. However, with these Chinese wall, the routing just remained unchanged. So as a consequence, when this customer looked at the VAPS, the planner still saw the production order according to the routing. So the planner looked at the VAPS, and for this entire week, this super prominent production order was on machine 1, whereas the whole company knew that the production order actually was running on machine 2. And then everybody said, hey, the scheduler is wrong. It is crap, it's shit, whatever. They found nice word to articulate what everybody knew, that the schedule was showing the wrong information. And this is a while ago. We started to look into this, and we thought, okay, we need to do something against this, especially if we think of this, then, I mean, this is the very prominent example. However, if we have these two tables, the capacity ledger entries and these production order routing lines, completely independent from each other, then you can actually do crazy things. I mean, this is an example that is, I would believe, happening very often. Planner schedules on one machine, and for some reason, the people on the shop floor have the authority to make decisions, decide to run it on a separate machine. And they post it. They post it right, and then we have the deviation. And the entire production journal, the entire way of creating capacity ledger entries gives you guys actually a lot of flexibility. So you can do fancy things, as I said earlier, like you can post an operation on several machines, right? You can say, okay, I post this. If you have a production order with 10 pieces to produce, you can produce the first 6 on machine 4 or machine 1, and then the last 4, you can book them on machine 2. You can just change this. And while it is running, and the BC will not require any setup or whatever, you can just do the posting. Or you can do this in a revolving manner, right? You can start the production order 1 on machine 1, then you stop it there. You start it on machine, you start the second production order on the same machine. Then you stop the second production order on that same machine and start production order 1 again. So you can like start, stop, start, stop, start, stop without any problem. And then like a schedule would always show both running in parallel. Or Business Center does not prevent you from posting an end date that is before the start date. You can do this. You can also post on a machine that is not allowed or feasible. So if you have something scheduled to whatever, your welding work center, you can post it on the painting cabin or whatever. So this is just, if there is no shop floor system, if there is no MES in place, if you just work with a production journal, then this all can happen. Or you can post after the fact on an already finished production order. So if the production order that you finished last week, and then somebody said, okay, we post on this. And this all happened. So there is almost no logical check when it comes to capacity ledger entries and postings. And this creates an issue for guys like us who try to build scheduling software to do proper production order and machine sequencing against finite capacity, taking into account material availability and all those things that the VAPS does. Because if we want to allow capacity ledger entries like to flow back into the VAPS and have an impact on the schedule, we really need to analyze what is happening here, what type of data have been produced and how we deal with them. Because ultimately there's a lot of value to kind of having your schedule being updated on the actuals. But if the actuals or the way of how the actuals are generated like have no logical checks, then we had to do a lot of thinking how to interpret it, how to deal with these data. And this is what we did. And this is what we implemented in the VAPS and shipped end of March with the March release, and what we're talking today. So if we talk about deviations between plan and actuals, what kind of deviations actually can we have based on the postings that you can do with Business Central? So you can have a deviation in resource, right? That was my example. The operation, the production or the routing line got scheduled to machine 1 and somebody books and posts it on machine 2. You can have a deviation in duration, right? You have a runtime that you have there for whatever, 100 minutes, and in reality it runs 120 minutes, or you were faster, it ran only 80 minutes, then you post it. So this can be a deviation. The deviation that it takes longer, of course, is the one that most people are interested in, because they push it out other production orders. You can have a deviation in time, right? You plan to start it at 1, but in reality you started it at 3. Again, like starting later is what happens or what matters to most people. And you can have a deviation in quantity, like you had planned to produce 30 and you produce more for whatever reason, because you had some scrap, or you had to do some rework or whatever. So this can be deviations that we can see. And there's a special case for the deviation of time. So for the deviation that we have here, and this is the deviation of the end time. This is something that we also decide to treat differently with the current version, and we already started to think how we treat it even more differently with future versions. But in general, the characteristics of a finished operation is so it's a deviation of end time, which is the very specific case. And if we have a deviation in the end time, so if an operation is posted at ended, is posted at finished, then it is finished. So as a matter of fact, an operation that is posted as finished always happened in the past, right? Independent of the routing. If the routing says this routing step will happen next Monday, and somebody on the shop floor picks this order today, works on it, and posts it at finish, then the operation happened, right? You cannot post something. I mean, you can post theoretically, but it makes no sense. So if you only post what makes sense, then if you post something as finished, then you know, okay, this thing happened in the past. If this operation happened in the past, it is no longer relevant for planning because it will not use any capacity today or in the future. Because the only things that are relevant for finite capacity scheduling are those operations that will consume capacity today or in the future. If something is posted as finished, it will not use capacity, and hence it is irrelevant for planning. If it is posted as finished, if you have a successor in the routing, it can start now, even if the work machine center is not utilized by any production order. So independent, if you said this will start tomorrow and end tomorrow, if you have finished it now, then the predecessor can start now if the machine is free. And also, if on the same machine another production order was lined up to get started once this one that you had scheduled to finish whatever tomorrow morning, if you finish it now, you can start the next one if there is no predecessor constraint anyway. So the thing with an operation that is finished, in our point of view, it's no longer relevant for planning. And in the VAPS, we just let a finished operation in the same position as it was. We gray it out. It does not use any capacity anymore. And hence, if you then apply any of the scheduling tools that we have in the VAPS, as it does not use any capacity, the successor of the routing can start immediately, and the successor on the same work and machine center can start immediately. So going forward, we think of like removing finished operations from the schedule or not showing them anymore. But we also know that you do not necessarily need to give a finished date and time. When we post, we know when you post, we know that many shop floor systems and many MES systems out there do this, but Business Central does not require a finish date and time if you post it. You can just say how it's finished, and hence as it cannot be guaranteed by Business Central standard that we have a finished time and a finished date. We decided, okay, for the time being, we let the finished operations just stay where they are. We do not update them anymore. We do not update the production or routing lines, but we remove the capacity need from them, and then the successors from the routing and the successors on that machine center, they can start immediately. And again, going forward, because this will create some interesting optical effects going forward, we thought of removing the finished operations from the plan. This is something we currently discuss, and we'll give you an update later on, maybe over the course of the next quarter. So how do we deal with deviations between plan and actuals in the VAPS? And these deviations between plan and actuals, I mean, they happen all day, every day. I don't know any customer who always executes as planned. So this happened. So we implemented a 3-step process. And the first step is that we want to help you to identify the deviations between plan and actuals. And this is, we added a functionality with which we load new shop floor data into the simulation. So you create the simulation, and in the moment you create, we catch all the information on production order routing lines, but we also catch all the available capacity ledger entries. But then while we have the simulation open, things can happen on the shop floor. People post, right? People start production orders, they finish production orders, they post partial quantities, whatever. So we now have the capability not to update the entire simulation, but to fetch the new shop floor data. Then we implemented a new color mode, which we call the shop floor status view. And with this shop floor status view, you can highlight visually the deviations I spoke before, the deviations in time, the deviation on the resource, the deviation on the time spent, the deviation on quantity. And so the coloring in the shop floor mode is according to the deviation types. And hence, with this view, you see that there are deviations between what you had planned and how you did execute. And then the next step, once you saw this, then you can update the simulations with the actuals. So concretely, this means we take the information from the capacity ledger entries and write these information into the production order routing lines in the simulation. Remember, you work on a simulation, you work on copied data. So in the simulation table, we have all the production orders. And then when we say update simulation, we take the capacity ledger entries and update the production order routing lines in the simulation table based on the shop floor data. That means that the operations in the simulation can get rescheduled based on the actuals, which means if you have an operation that was meant to work on machine 1 and somebody posted it on machine 2, if you say update, the bar would move from machine 1, machine 2. If you have a production or operation that was scheduled to start at 1 p.m. and the operator started at 3 p.m., then the bar will move right and it would push out all the other bars on the machines. And we implemented 2 options how you can update this. You can like bulk update the schedule. So we gave you a button that just says update, and then we take care for everything. So then we kind of write the capacity ledger into all production order routing lines in the simulation and update automatically. Or you can do it one after by one. So for operation by operation by operation, you can select it and say, okay, I want to update this, I want to update this. In my demo later, I will show you this process here so that you got the principle, but we recommend, of course, to do this because with the volume, with the average volume of production orders a customer of us has, then what I will do in the demo will be too tedious. So it is good that we can do this because it helps you to understand how the product works. And it also helps us in implementing the VAPS and training you guys. But for the real life practice, we always recommend to do this. And then the last step is super important. You need to publish the simulation because when we update the schedule based on the actuals, we write, and I said this now a couple of times, we write the capacity ledger entries into the production order routing lines in the simulation. So we now still have simulation data. And if you want to update your business central data, if you want to update your business central production orders, you need to publish the simulation. And with publish of the simulation, we write back the changed routing information based on the actual into the business central routing lines. So with this process, we make sure that once you publish the simulation, for all production orders that are running, the capacity ledger entries and the routing lines speak the same language. They show the same information. So this data gap that I spoke about in the beginning, this gets closed by this. And it gets closed by writing information from the capacity ledger entries in the production order routing lines. First in the simulation so that you can see what this means. But then when you publish, we update the production order routing lines in the business central production orders. If you don't publish, you don't update the routing lines according to the actuals, and then next time you have to do this work here again, which is not that much work, but the more you forget to do this, like the bigger the changes to your schedule will be, because the longer you wait for updating your schedule with the actuals, the more actuals will have happened and the bigger impact on the schedule is. So in order to identify the deviation between plan and actuals, like first you have to load new shop floor data, and we do this, we add it under the actions menu. Under edit, we have a new option, load new shop floor data. And then what we recommend is once you do this, you change, at least once you do this, you change the color mode and apply the shop floor status view so that you see once the data is loaded where the deviations are. And the shop floor status view has 5 colors. Red is a deviation in resource. Then there are 2 shades of orange, which kind of show a deviation regarding the timing. The one is the deviation in duration. So for example, that the posted runtime was longer than the planned runtime. And the deviation in time, the darker orange shows, okay, that was planned to start at 1 p.m. and we started at 3 p.m. Yellow is the deviation in quantity, and green is there is no deviation right now. And no deviation means there's either no posting or the posting mirrors exactly the plan, so that was executed as planned. And this is just the first step. So I'm seeing that I'm getting a question. Does the simulation continuously update while it is open, or only updates when loading the simulation? So first of all, when we open the simulation, so when we load it, we fetch all latest capacity ledger entries, and then there is no continuous silent update, but you have to press a button and say load new shop floor data. So you as the planner can decide when you want to update. And then the second step is you need to update the simulation with the actuals. Now you have loaded them, and now you have to see what the impact on the schedule is. And in that case, like the operations get the posted starting date and time, and if the actual time, the duration and or timing differs from the planned time, we change the length of the bars accordingly if the time became longer. And this has an impact on planned operations. So if an operation gets prolonged due to shop floor postings, we automatically move all predecessors on that machine and their predecessors on other machines to the right. If an operation gets shortened, so if you are faster, we do not automatically bring things to the left. Because for two reasons. So first of all, we assume that your operator, if they finished with one production order earlier than planned, they will start the next one anyway. So then the next one get a new start date from your shop floor system, from the production journal, or from your MES, and then this will get automatically adapted. Or what also could happen if there was like, what also can happen if you free up capacity because you be faster, and then there are production orders waiting on standby, or if you have an urgent production, again you have the chance to squeeze it in there. So we always automatically calculate the impact on the schedule if things are delayed, but if things are faster than planned, then either the people on the shop floor can immediately start the next one, and then the schedule will automatically update and you will have the back-to-back schedule, or you as the planner can decide now to squeeze something in. In order to monitor all these changes and in order to get a better grip on the actuals, we also, especially for updating the simulation with the actual, we changed the red line. The red line used to be the work date line, so it was always on the beginning of the work date. But if the work date is the actual date, which is the case in every productive BC environment, then the red line, which was the static work date line, now became an constantly changing current timeline. So this red line constantly updates, so you see it moving and moving and moving, and this red line continues to be the earliest start date for apply routing and for all the scheduling instruments we have. So if it is 11 o'clock and you say apply routing, then the earliest time that we'll schedule will be 11 o'clock and no longer 9 a.m. if this was the start of your work date. So this is also like a minor change, but the interesting thing is now how to update the simulation. Well, we can say again, edit, apply shop floor changes. This is the holistic one for the entire schedule at once. This is what we recommend. And we also can on one operation, on a right mouse click, say apply shop floor changes. And then this will be applied for the single production order routing line. So for the single production order, for the single operation, this is what I will be doing, or what I will do in the demo in a few minutes, just that we can better follow what is happening. But again, we recommend that you do this just for the sake of for managing the data volume and for like efficiency of scheduling. Then the last step, do not forget, I made this now in red with a big exclamation mark, you need to publish the simulation. Without publishing, we do not update the plan with the actuals. Without this, capacity ledger entries, they're capacity ledger, routing lines, they're routing lines. Only if you publish, then we will write back the information from the capacity ledger entries into the routing lines for those production orders where you have postings on. Now, before I go to the demo, just one information, I customized my VAPS, so I customized the bar label on the VAPS so that you guys can better follow the demo. My bar will look like this in the demo, and the information that is shown here is, this is the production order number, then you see in brackets the quantity, then you see the start date and time and the end date and time as it is in the production order routing line. And then you see in the third line the start date and time as per the capacity ledger entries, the start and the end date and time, start date and start time, start end date and end time as per capacity ledger, and in brackets you see the posted quantity. And this will allow us now to see what's happening. Here you see already, like we had planned to do 70 units, we posted 70, we planned to start it on the 22nd at 8 o'clock, and we are also started here on the 22nd on 8 o'clock, so like execution precision, but we plan to finish at 10 past 9, and we actually finished at a quarter to midnight. So this is just this. I customized the bar like this so that we can now better follow the demo. And just if you're curious how I did this, for the sake of handout, I just put a screenshot of the menu with which you can customize the bar label on the VAPS, and you can do this as a user. You don't need our help, or you don't need a programmer. You can do it on your own. This is how I did this. So we will share this the slides after the meeting. Like Ute will do a mailing as always, and then you can get it from there, or you can take a screenshot. I actually found this, having this type of data on the bars, quite useful. So now let's have a look and get to my demo environment, which I need to log in again. Here we go, and I will go and change my work date, which is typically my demo. This is a Mickey Mouse date, but today, because we talk about the shop floor integration, I set it to today, the 22nd of May. 23rd of May, and now I can create a simulation. I'm looking a week back and 12 weeks into the future. So I'm looking like starting from the 16th of May to the 15th of August this year, and I look at the data in what I call the production order view, so that the production orders have their individual colors. We create the simulation. So now I copied my production orders on production routing lines and so on and so forth in the simulation table. And now on the simulation table, we can do the scheduling. So I can look at this now, and then I see my schedule. For the sake of today's demo, I have no production orders on standby, but everything is scheduled. And now you see like it's a little bit colored, and you see these bars with the 3 lines. And if you see in the third line just a 0, then this means I don't have any posting, right? And the post quantity is 0, and there is no start date time and no end date time yet. You also see my work date line here now is 17:33, so it's 5:30 here in Germany right now. And you can scroll down here. You see, okay, this is actually where we are, and if we wait a bit, this will move. So I won't wait now until this moves, but interestingly enough, now today is the 23rd of May, and you see I had some production orders that were scheduled here yesterday. They are like grayed out a bit. They have this long underscore, so they all are posted as finished, but I also have some like this. This is running, so it started like yesterday at 11:30. We already have 10 posted. We need to do another 50. And now I would expect that now someone on the shop floor would like post some progress on this. And then we have like this one here. You see on the CDX 2500, we had one that finished this morning, and there was one planned to start now, or to start today, like it was planned to start at 20 past 11, but now being 5:30, there is still no posting. So let's assume the guys on the shop floor just recognize this. We call them and say, look, these some postings missing, and say, yeah, you know, actually, we had some issues. We had to run the machine a little bit slower. We had to produce, and now you see it moved actually. We had to produce a bit more, and we're still not done. Okay, so now let's say, okay, we do the posting, and this was like, we do the posting now manually here because I don't have any MES system here now, right now. So it is like on the second machine, on the second routing step, they post, okay, we actually didn't do whatever, we didn't do 30, but we posted, we already had to do a bit more. And instead of 480 minutes on runtime, we already have been working on this for 600 minutes. So the runtime was 480 minutes, but they say, okay, now we worked on this longer and we are not yet finished, right? So they say, okay, we started that on that machine, and we started it as planned. So we started it at 11:20. It is not yet finished. We don't book it as finished. The first one is finished, but we don't book this. I post this as finished. We post more than was originally planned, and we post a runtime of 600 minutes. So it also it has been running longer. So now I post this, and first of all, nothing happened because this is something that happened on the shop floor. But and we don't have the data, but we already see the progress bar updated, and it is red now. And now this gives me already the alert, hey, this red progress bar tells me, hey, there was posted more than we initially wanted. So now I know that there's at least one posting from the shop floor, but we will continue to build the case that we're looking at, because at the beta here, we see we have something where we already have 50 of 100 produced. We started this yesterday morning, and the good news is the guys actually managed to finish this. So they finish it, they book it, they post it now as finished, so they could run the machine faster than planned. And let me do this. So we go here, again on production journal, and I'll make this all manually. So I delete this. It was the first routing line. They produced everything, and we set an ending time. So maybe this was Rust right now, or yeah, they said, okay, now they finish it while we are here on this stunning webinar. So they ending time, and they finish the operation. So home, post. And now you see this got grayed out, so it is finished. This is what I see already, but the dates didn't, so the finish date did not get updated. Also here, we don't have in brackets the posted quantity because we didn't load new shop floor data. So let's look at the third case. Let's look at my Phoenix machine. So here, this production order is planned or was planned. So this is today, right? It's now 20 to 6. It was started to start at midday, so at 12:15. No posting yet, and for some reason, the guys had delay. So for some reason, on the first production, on the first operation, the guys couldn't start. The guys couldn't, they already did 5 of the 40, but they couldn't start at, what was it, 11:20, but they had an issue with the machine or issue with whatever. They had to inspect the material again, I don't know, but they started at 3. So they started late, and this is what we post now, what we tell the system now. So now we know we have, and again here, nothing happens right now. We now know on the Phoenix, on the Beta 800, and on the CDX 2500, we made postings. And now we know something happened. So now as a planner, I say, okay, I have scheduled everything. I want to check what is new on the shop floor. And then I can say edit, load new shop floor data. And then you see now here, dates have been populated, right? Okay, I see I got a start date and I get a quantity. Okay, wow, we already did 35 instead of 30, but we have still no finish date. And same at the beta, I see, okay, we have a start date, we have an end date, and we have the full quantity. And again here. Now the coloring here is still the same as it was before. It is the production order coloring. So much more interesting is if we change the color view now, after we did this, or we could have done actually before that, and look at the shop floor status view, and then we see here we get an issue. It is orange, which means we have a deviation in time. Remember, we posted a runtime of 600 while it was planned to be 480. And we have a deviation here because we had planned, this was scheduled to start whatever at 12:15 and I started it at 15. So we have a delayed start. We don't have any issue here, but this is grayed out. And this capacity here, and we can see it also, this capacity here is no longer being utilized by that production order. So now what we would recommend to do is that you do like edit, apply shop floor changes, and then we would apply it all at once. But now here, we actually do it one after the other. And actually now you see, if I really scroll down, the deep dive, we get a third line. We have this work date. This is, now it's 41 minutes past 5. And now we see this is the last shop floor refresh. This was 2 minutes ago. So 2 minutes ago, I clicked the button and said load new shop floor data. So if you're a planner over time, this line will move to the right, and over time, and this is also something that we will work on with you in the training and in the Go Live program of the VAPS, we will be determine actually what is the right frequency to load new shop floor data. So what should be a good distance between those two lines. So here now, in my resolution, you basically almost do not see this. But here now we know, and now let's apply the shop floor data. We loaded the shop floor data, now apply this, and I now will not apply this globally, but apply this one after one. We know that what I did here is I posted more quantity and I posted a longer runtime with the same start date. So if I now say apply shop floor data, I would assume that this orange thing here now would go longer and push out all the others. And I can do this, right mouse click, apply shop floor changes. And then you see it got longer. The orange is gone because now I have like updated. I have updated the schedule with the actuals, but I still have it in orange because I have the in yellow because I have the difference in the quantity. And you see all those production on that machine automatically got pushed out because the runtime was long, or the reported runtime longer than expected. And of course, if there would have been like this got pushed out, this got pushed out, this pushed out its successor. So we see all those downstream impacts. Then remember, we have the beta 800. This is finished. So now what we can say, and we know it finished like today. It finished here basically around the black line. It finished at 1737, and now after today 737, so after basically the black line, this requires no more capacity. So I can say here on the right mouse click, Titan Q on this machine center, and as this one is finished at this point of time, it does not require capacity, so everything else is brought forward. The only reason why this isn't brought forward more is because it's a predecessor constraint, but this one now could get accelerated. And I know that the stacking of bars is not ideal right now here, but it tells us that this does no longer need capacity, and this is why we're thinking of going forward that we just take out the finished operation from the schedule, and then you see, be easy to see where you have gaps and then bring forward those one. Then last but not least, we have this one here where we posted the partial quantity, but where we started later than planned. So we did not start at 12, but we started at 3. So if I say apply shop floor changes here, then I would expect that the length of this stays the same, but it moves to the right and again pushes out at least the next one here. And if I do this, then exactly this happened. And now the shop floor data and the routing lines are in sync, and then hence it is green. So now I know I updated my schedule based on the actuals. The only one that I have here is I made a mistake. So I have like a deviation in start date. This was a posting mistake I did earlier when I prepared this. And I have these yellow ones that still indicate me, okay, here is something where I had deviation of the quantity. The rest now is fine. The schedule is updated based on my actuals. So then I can leave the simulation and I can publish it. And next time I come, my schedule exactly looks like this. So now we write back the information from the capacity ledger entries into the Business Central production order. So next time I create a simulation, we can do this and view it. Then we see that, for example, on the last one, on the Phoenix machine, we still see that this production order now starts at 15 as planned. So here, this one was the one that we shifted, and now it starts here, start date at 15 as planned and no longer at 12 as it was before. So now, and if we go here in the routing lines, you also see this got updated, like it's in progress because it had posting, and the routing line here got updated, and this now shows the exact same information than you have on the capacity ledger entry. So if I go related order entries, capacity ledger entries, then we see here we have it running on that machine, and there should be, if we go like this, there should be a starting time 15. So capacity ledger, production order, routing lines are the same, and this is with updating the schedule and then publishing it. We wrote into the production order routing lines, and now we have like the schedule reflecting the actuals. And in my point of view, this is a very, very efficient way to run an almost live schedule. So get the shop floor data, update the simulation, publish it, and this brings me back to my PowerPoints. And this is already available, so this is nothing that we built, but this is available. You can get it from AppSource, you can get it from our partner portal. It's in version 1.13, so it was released end of March. So this functionality is available. And if we summarize this, so the recommended workflow to update the schedule with the actuals would be that you first always finish your previous scheduling work like I did. I had nothing on standby. Publish the simulation. So finish your scheduling work, publish the simulation so that you have like a clean sheet of paper, a clean schedule. Then create a new simulation, apply the color mode shop floor status view. Then you load new shop floor data. You apply the shop floor data. I would recommend it all in one go. So not as I did, one after the other with right mouse click. You will just get mad. Depending on how many production orders you have in your system. I would always do it in one go. The only reason why I did this here one after the other was because I wanted to show you the effect, and I wanted that you could concentrate on that one product or that one operation and how this got changed. Once you did this, I would always say that you do Titan queues. So Titan queues also not as I did. Let me go back for a second. I would always go then action schedule Titan queues. Titan queues means you bring all production orders forward as far to the left as you can without changing the sequence of the machine and the work center. So this is something I was always do for the entire schedule. So I would always do it after. I would always go like show shop floor data, apply shop floor changes, and then action schedule Titan queues. This is something that we started to discuss if we could automate this so that we can run all these 3 steps in one go. The discussion is not yet finished, but this is something I would highly recommend to do, like action, edit, load, no new shop floor data, apply, and then go to schedule, fill, tighten queues, because this then will like make sure that if you have freed up capacity that is get used, like in my case on the beta where we finished something that was planned to finish tomorrow, we finished it at 17:37, so then everything was moved to the left. So in that case, you just make sure by this tighten queues you fill the gaps and use the capacity that was freed up by finishing things earlier than planned. And then you are done with updating the schedule. After that, I would say you have made a new schedule based on the actuals. Then you can continue to work with your VAPS. You can check material availability. You can check things that are late. You can move things around. But then the last step, and I made it in red and bold, you need to publish the simulation so that the capacity ledger entries get written into the routing lines and that you really have updated the routing lines that we take as the databases for everything that is happening in the VAPS. And with this, I'm at the end of what I prepared for today. I hope you find this as exciting as I find this. I think this is a very, very useful feature. It's a powerful feature to make sure that you can run a live or an almost live schedule. You have this visual, you can update this with what's happening on the shop floor. You don't have to rely on some magic happening background, but you really with this bring together scheduling and managing and or controlling like the actuals of your production on the routing lines. If you have any question, feel free to ask it now, or if your question comes to mind later, then send me an email or send me a message on LinkedIn. I'm really happy to connect. And with this, thanks again for your patience following my webinars. Thanks that you took the time to be with me here for 1 hour today. We will shortly schedule the next webinars for June. So stay tuned for an email to come, and then see you next time around. Now I see that there is one question. Hi, I'm new to VAPS and I have a slightly unrelated question. I have a work center where an operation places a capacity box wider than actual operation on the board. I have no idea why this is occurring. I would say I will send you an email, and then we set up a short meeting, and then we can have a look at your system. We needed your data, and then we definitively find an explanation to this. So this is nothing I think that we can answer without looking at your system. So if this is fine for you, then let me reach out to you after the meeting, and then either you and I do this, or I connect you with one of my colleagues to have a look at this. So there is no more questions. So then again, thank you. See you around next time. By the way, for those of you who are in Germany or in the central part of Europe, there's an exciting event coming up this week in Düsseldorf called the Days of Knowledge. Lot of training for partners. I will be there on Thursday giving a presentation on reservation entries and production orders and sales orders. And the same conference is happening next week, end of next week, in Odense in Denmark. I will be there as well. And so if you're from Denmark and if you go there, make sure you say hi, and then we can discuss your scheduling needs also there. So with this, thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.